the voice of the Minnesota Vikings on radio from K-Fan here in the Twin Cities, Paul Allen, a.k.a. PA, on the mic.
Thanks for the nice words. It's D.A. and P.A.
D.A. and P.A.
Yeah, this might have a future, right? Thanks for the nice words, too. I don't know exactly what you like about my radio show to say so many nice words, but I've done it for 19 years, and for the most part, it's fun. We do have a little Loserville to us here in the Twin Cities, where, like in the NFC title game, when the Vikings get close to the Super Bowl, can't close on it. Minnesota Wild losing the first round of the postseason. Timberwolves haven't been to the playoffs in a decade and a half. And the baseball teams had some struggles, too, so we'll take all the love we can get.
I got connected to your show, and I used to come up here to cover the Kansas City Chiefs in River Falls, Wisconsin. On training camp, I used to drive up, obviously, through Minnesota from Kansas City, and then in River Falls for a week plus, I used to listen to your show, and I just became hooked on it. And
really?
Since I've streamed it and listened to it on podcast, and I try to keep up. One of the things that I love about your show is
the objectivity.
You are a relentless optimist.
Yeah, right.
Even though after the losses, you become soul crushed.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I think that in sports radio, sometimes we become cynical.
Yeah.
And you refuse to go down that road.
Nah, it's this working at K-Fan. It's my first radio job at any level. Calling Vikings games is my first play-by-play opportunity at any level. So, I was permitted to come into the opportunities and do it the way I thought was best. And by just being me, and I think, you being successful in this business, you recognize when you can be yourself and have a unique niche, then you're probably going to win, if you can do it a certain way. Then, as the years go on, I just recognized specifically as social media became more popular, just how so many people, as you mentioned, became cynical and wisecracking and negative. So, it's really in my nature to take the opposite approach as it is. That's just how I guess I'm altruistic. And, so therefore that kind of created a monopoly, not only in this market, but nationally when I do stuff like this. So I'm just very fortunate. It's a lot of fun, and we'll see what happens next year with the football team.
You also have a lexicon to the show. And there's all inside jokes, words, lanes,
right,
labels, titles, nicknames that you got to listen to the show, but once you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
Is that just normally how you speak, or did you know that, okay, on the show to get people hooked, let's create a culture around it?
No, it wasn't contrived. It's kind of the way I and my friends and members of my family, we, the way we talk when we're, when I'm not working on the radio. And it has bled into my football play-by-play where, I've been a racetrack announcer for a quarter century.
Yeah.
And a lot of the horse racing calls that I've done, I employed in the National Football League. For instance, like when a player, I think it became nationally recognized with Adrian Peterson. He would find an opening and then scoot clear, and I would scream, "And he's loose." And people seem to really like that locally and nationally. That's something that I had been doing in horse racing for about 10 or 15 years when a horse would grab the lead at the top of the stretch and open up 5 lengths and he's loose. And so therefore I was able to bring some of the nuance from horse racing into mainstream radio and NFL play-by-play. And a lot of people were like, whoa, I've never heard that before. But there are things that I've been doing for years.
Paul Allen from K-Fan here in Minnesota, also the voice of the Vikings. When I get to see myself on NFL films as part of those top 10s or anything like that.
I've seen you a lot, man. You do a good job.
I appreciate
Sitting
that.
in those hotel rooms talking about those top 10s.
Yeah, well, you've done it as well.
Yeah.
And I always get a kick out of it because NFL films is what I grew up on.
Yeah.
And I just love their storytelling and how they put it. For you, how about listening to your calls attached to the NFL film specials?
I think
you've
it's
had
cool.
so many of them.
Yeah, I think it's cool. No, I dig it. There are a lot of people who slow play it, and they're like, it's part of the job, and I get a little embarrassed by it, which I do. But I also recognize that I never went to college. I went to junior college for 5 years. I've auditioned for all these jobs that I have, and I've really, really worked hard to perfect my craft and become good at these jobs. So when I'm watching NFL Network and these top 10 shows, which I love and clearly you love, and they tie my call to a positive or negative moment, I'm very flattered because, I know I'm 52 years of age and I have no idea how much longer I will do radio or play-by-play, but I know that there will be a day where, specifically as fast-moving as things are now with social media and it just roots to competing, that there will be a day people will be like, nobody cares what the bleep Paul Allen has to say or what he does or what he did. So I appreciate every minute of it. I think it's really cool.
We love to play play-by-play calls and grade them out, and we loved playing your Minneapolis Miracle call, obviously, the Stephon Diggs play from a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Thought it was amazing. I thought you captured it really, really perfectly.
Thank
but we
you.
were wondering, did you come up with Minneapolis Miracle on the fly? Because you identified it twice in that call, and I said that's key to sports and football legend,
right,
is if you can identify the nickname, the catchphrase, within the actual live caller.
Right. Actually, I didn't have it scripted or anything. What I did with the analyst, Pete Bursich, who was very prominent on that Minneapolis Miracle call. And Pete is pretty even-keeled, and, he'll show emotion, but he's more analytical than he is emotional, and I'm more emotional than I am analytical, which makes us a good team, in my opinion. But into that drive, after Will Lutz kicked, I think, a 43-yard field goal, and the building felt like we were dead. And this is after a 13-3 season where, with the Super Bowl at U.S. Bank Stadium, it's almost like we felt we were owed an opportunity to play in that game with that great season we had. And then all of a sudden we're losing. And we're coming into that final drive, and I said to Pete, we're going to need a Minneapolis Miracle. And he followed it up by saying, Paul, this is where legends are made. And then we started the drive, and the play happened, and I recalled that I said Minneapolis Miracle, and I tagged the call a couple of times with that, and man, I had no idea it was going to catch on the way it did nationally. My kids are 17 and 15, so they're proud of what Dad does, but they're also millennials. So when that went number one worldwide on YouTube, and they could go to school saying, my dad's Minneapolis Miracle call is number one on YouTube, that's like a life highlight for millennials. And I didn't completely understand what it took to have it be like number one worldwide on YouTube while being very proud. But then a few days after that, in the over-analytical world in which we live, I started to get a little backlash from Minnesotans saying, well, granted, the game's in Minneapolis, but, it should have been the Minnesota Miracle.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, because, I live in St. Paul, and I live in Minnetonka, and I live in Fridley, and Eden Prairie, and Waseca, and so on, and, I have nothing to do with Minneapolis, so I had to fight that a little bit for a second, and I never argue on Twitter. It's fruitless. But I did respond to a couple of people saying, look, the game was in Minneapolis, the action is moving fast, I don't script this, and that's how it came out.
Yeah.
So just enjoy it, and let's go beat the Eagles.
Vikings Vox, Paul Allen joining us here on the show. We had a Juicy Lucy yesterday.
Yeah, you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I try to make them at home, and they never come out as good as what you would have.
How do you create the pocket, the meat pocket, to put the cheese in there?
Well, you got to get multiple patties.
Okay.
So you have multiple patties, and then you got to dig the hole in there. And I think there's olive oil, things to make it stick. Then you cook it a little bit. Then the cheese and the stuff go in the middle. You put it together. You cook it again. It's I'm not an elite culinary mind, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
I wanted to ask you about your love of soul music, R&B, because I'm a huge funk fan as well.
Are you really?
Funk and
How
soul.
old are you?
38.
Okay, and I'm 52, and I grew up in Washington, D.C. on one side of the tracks where, for me, it was Brothers Johnson, Tower of Power, Daryl Hall and John Oates, the Commodores, the Bar-Kays, the Stylistics. On the other side of the tracks, it was Led Zeppelin and Rush and Cheap Trick and Thin Lizzy, and so that's how I grew up, man.
So, I was wondering, have you always listened to soul music or R&B, or does that come from back in the day, or did you? Because I've grown a little bit even more to appreciate more of it with like Apple Music, because I can discover more and just I didn't have those tapes or those CDs. Now I can kind of go into the archives.
It's absolutely my number one passion. Sports is my job.
Music is your number one passion?
100%. I am the one who will sit in my sinkhole in front of a wood-burning fire. In fact, I did it a couple of days ago, and watch YouTube live shows. Not full shows, but for whatever the reason, God rest the soul of the great Whitney Houston, one of the great female vocalists in the history of music. I just started, after the NFC title game, I started watching for about an hour her songs, song after song after song, including one where she sang for the military live called All the Man I Need, which is absolutely one of the most powerful songs you will ever watch. Whitney Houston, All the Man I Need, on YouTube. And it's not like I battle finding confidence. It's tricky to go down that road to discuss it. But there, before football games and before games that I call, I will watch dominating lead vocalists execute their craft via YouTube, because it builds my confidence to crack the microphone and dominate. And, I'm probably taking this way too seriously, but in doing play-by-play for tens, hundreds of thousands of people on the Vikings radio network, there is a certain lead vocalist characteristic to it, where, like doing the 3-hour radio show I do for KFan, that's more of a big conversation, but calling plays, hitting on Minneapolis Miracle, hitting on this is not Detroit, this is the Super Bowl man in 09, moments like that requires a certain degree of preparation, confidence, and ability to be in the moment to do it right. So I watch lead singers like Daryl Hall, Whitney Houston, lead singers who are really, really confident in what they do, and it builds my confidence.
That's amazing. Paul Allen joins us here on the show. Before I let you go, because I know you got a show to host, I wanted to play a short clip that we have from a guy that says he knows you named Robbie Rosenhaus. Let's play this clip right now for Paul Allen.
Yeah, I ain't got no wife. No. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Now, do we...
Yeah, Robbie's great.
We don't know if we believe him that he actually knows you
accurate.
And is entrusted with driving around your girlfriend.
I love Robbie, and my domestic partner, my live-in girlfriend, is a flight attendant, so she's able to go to all Vikings road games, and I bring her to all road games. And she was at the NFC title game with Robbie and some other friends with tickets provided by the Vikings. And they were in a section 234 at Lincoln Financial, where, I haven't really gone down the road that much on my radio show just about the vitriol and the hostility with the fans. But some of the stories are unbelievable. Some of the things that they heard from, I'm going to do this to your daughter, Pat Elflein, you fat slob, you're laying on the field with a broken ankle, I hope you die. Things that were said to Case Keenum's wife. It was unbelievable, and they had to leave. And Robbie came up very big for those in my party when the game was out of hand, to get them out of there safely, because there were moments where they felt that things weren't going to end safely for them.
Wow. Paul Allen, voice of the Vikings.
Damon, I appreciate
Robbie
it, man.
Rosenhaus's story checks out. Thanks so much, PA.
I appreciate
it, man. Paul Allen, Vikings Vox, joining us here on the show.